All right. Hey, back. All right. I was trying to figure out on shit that we can do while I'm eating. Like I couldn't figure out a single goddamn thing. I wanted like watch the news or some shit, but like honestly, I started looking for news to watch and it looks so boring. It looks so boring to watch. Ah. So for right now, let me see if I can look up like a fun documentary or something real fast. Okay. Uh. Wow, this is 40 minutes long. Okay, we're probably not gonna watch the entire thing, but this actually looks kind of interesting. Yeah, this actually looks kind of cool. Let's take a look at it. The history of anime and Japan looks fun. All right, pause that for a second. Desktop audio, so you guys hear.
In the late 17th century, the forerunners to modern genetic studies promoted a biological theory on reproduction called preformation. Essentially, the hypothesis proposed that during the fluid exchange of breeding, a miniature, fully formed human being would be planted into the womb.
This
It
is how
was
Astro Boy.
inconceivable that humans, in our infinite complexity, could be created from something so rudimentary.
In what year?
In the studies of anime, a similar perspective can be observed. Though coined in the 1960s, anime did not spontaneously emerge with the series Astro Boy. Fully formed and complete with the features and
Funny enough, in the 1960s, this was around the time that like heavy focus and a lot of government funding was placed onto the sciences specifically. Um and a lot of branches of like trying to figure out the sequencing of like DNA. There was a lot of study placed onto anatomy around the time again to figure out just how the body worked. I think this was a response because of a bunch of like pandemics that were coming out around that time. I can't remember, was it measles or something in the 60s? I know with Roosevelt they were dealing with it wasn't the one that like fucking put you in a wheelchair. I'm too tired to think about it. But yeah.
style with which we associate anime today. Instead, conception occurred long before it became recognizable. Anime gestated over hundreds of years, incorporating the DNA of culture, art, and technology into its development.
Yes, sir.
This is the history of anime.
Have you guys ever
Between
watched Astro
1603
Boy?
and 1868, the nation of Japan had experienced more than 200 years of relative peace and isolation. In a highly stratified and rigid society, the people were organized into hereditary classes. The emperor at the top was more of a unifying figurehead, with the Tokugawa shogun, a dynasty of military dictators, commanding the true power and to whom all feudal lords pledged loyalty. At the bottom of the hierarchy were the farmers, making up around 85% of the population, followed by the craftsmen, artisans, and merchants below them. Priests, butchers, and those that performed work deemed essential yet uncivilized existed as outcasts. Within the top class lived the samurai, proud warriors who, with more than 2 centuries of peace, found themselves provided with a healthy stipend and excessive leisure time. Commercial districts began to appear catering to the samurai's whim, called floating worlds. It was through their
Floating
patronage that
worlds.
art and performance flourished, kabuki theater and puppet shows, and of course, the iconic woodblock print. The world-renowned hokusai took Japanese art into a new dimension. Not only popular among the Japanese, they were highly prized by European collectors as well. Interactions with the Western world were limited to a man-made island off the coast of Nagasaki, a small trading post called Dejima. Originally used by
Ichiban.
Portuguese traders and later the Dutch after the shogun outlawed Christianity, foreigners were forbidden from entering the mainland proper. The Dutch brought with them literature and technology from the outside world. Though most were ignored as barbarian, some were adopted and adapted for Japanese society. The magic lantern, an early projection device capable of casting images painted onto glass slides. It found its use in education and, of course, entertainment. Although limited, its ability to tell rudimentary animated stories, some could argue that this is the true birth of anime, and indeed, Japanese cinema. While the Dutch had exclusive access to trade, the rest of the West, in their ever-expanding colonization of the world, were repeatedly refused permission to step foot on Japanese shores. However, the arrival of the United States' fabled black ships, technologically superior in every way, set Japan on a path that would forever change.
I didn't realize that my microphone was picking up the. Hold on. Go over to AirPods real quick.
World history. For U.S. whalers, Japan would be a useful port for resupplying, and the nation could benefit from Japanese resources. They gave the Japanese two options: sign a trade agreement, or be destroyed.
All right.
Outclassed, humiliated, and in fear of becoming another Western colony, they signed. Immediately, the rest of the world arrived, demanding treaties of their own. Any pleas to alter the agreements were ignored, claiming that Japan was not a modern society. And it was true. Japan was a collection of semi-autonomous regions, and the shogunate government had been weakening even before the arrival of Western warships. But nothing unifies a group faster than the presence of an other. In a rare case of top-down revolution, the samurai class led a swift war that overthrew the shogun and restored the emperor as leader of the nation. It was a race to escape the unequal treaties and avoid becoming another Western pawn. Under the Meiji Emperor, Japan experienced rapid reform and development. Feudalism was abolished and all land belonged to the state. The class system was dissolved. Traditional clothing was replaced by Western fashion, and the samurai, who accounted for just 5% of the population, yet were paid using almost half of the state revenues, lost their stipends. Englishman Charles Workman, after arriving in Japan, published Japan Punch, introducing Western comic styles, which were adapted and refined with the Japanese cartoon magazine Eshibon Nipponchi, followed by a slew of magazines aimed at the now highly literate population. Notably, the first modern usage of the term manga was used by Rakuten Kitazawa, the father of manga and merchandising. A newly industrialized society requires two components: resources to refine and consumers to profit from. The Japanese military learned from their Western aggressors how to secure the supply and enforce a demand. After Japanese sailors were shipwrecked and killed by aboriginals on the island of Taiwan, the country invaded and only agreed to leave once they received 18 tons of silver from the Chinese Qing court. It then employed gunboat diplomacy against Korea, prying them open to international trade. When Japan demanded special privileges in Korea, China refused, sparking the First Sino-Japanese War. Within a year, Japan easily defeated the already divided China and forced them to sign the Treaty of Shimonoseki, which gave them control of Taiwan, the Liaodong Peninsula, and annexed Korea from Chinese suzerainty. They had emulated Western expansionism perfectly. In 1903, the first cinema had opened in Tokyo, just in time to show footage of their first battle with the West. As Russia was completing its Trans-Siberian Railway, and also vying for control of Korea and Manchuria, the Japanese launched a surprise attack. Both experienced heavy losses, but to the shock of the world, Japan won the war. It was the first time a modern Western power had been defeated by an Eastern nation. In 1910, Japan took formal control of Korea, and embiggened by their recent conquests, Japan, now a fully modernized empire, successfully demanded the cancellation of the unequal treaties imposed upon them. And 1 year later, 59
around what time?
9 years after taking control, they demanded the defeated by and Manchuria leading its Trans-Siberian Railway. The Japanese launched a surprise attack. Both experienced heavy losses. To the shock of the world, Japan won the war. It was the first time a modern Western power had been defeated by an Eastern nation. In 1910, Japan took
1910, that's right. Okay.
formal
Okay.
control of Korea. And embiggened by their
I
recent
didn't realize
conquests,
Japan actually had
Japan,
control
now
of
a fully
Korea during that
modernized
time.
empire, successfully demanded the cancellation of the unequal treaties imposed upon them. And 1 year later, 59 years after taking control and uplifting the country, the Meiji Emperor passed away. He had left his son in command of an unrecognizable domain, and it was here, at the cusp of a new world, where Japanese animation began. In 2004, amongst a collection of old films and projectors, a short 3-second reel fragment was discovered, commonly referred to as Katsudo Sashin. The mystery of its creation date was the source of wild debate. Some speculated that it could be the world's first animation. Although it does hold the title of Japan's oldest animation in existence, the truth is, we don't know its real age. With optical toys such as the zoetrope and magical lantern, finding and dating the very first animation is an impossible task.
It's even harder when like you do research into animation and you realize that it goes so much farther than the 1900s. I mean, in Russia, they were doing like a form of like puppeteering animation. I think one of the earliest forms of animation from there is this old story about a cricket who refuses to save for winter food for winter and basically ends up starving and dies. But it was all done through like puppeteering and like photography. So like a lot of people consider that to be like one of the earlier signs of like traditional anime. Uh, Even though it wasn't like hand drawn.
The first theatrical animations were shown in 1917. One of the oldest anime still viewable is The Dull Sword. Created by Junichi Kochi, it tells the story of a samurai's trials purchasing a sword and meets expectations as something uniquely Japanese. The next still viewable is Urashima Taro, depicting his adventures under the ocean. Both works were praised by the Pure Film Movement, an organization established to modernize Japanese cinema as an art form that could promote Japanese culture.
Oda?
Established to modernize Japanese cinema.
Oda? No way. Is this where he got the idea for this? Urashima Taro. Oh.
Cinema as an art form that could promote Japanese culture at an international standard.
Never got the reference to
The
that.
advent of domestic animation coincided with the First World War. Japan allied with Great Britain and successfully took control of German colonies in China and the Pacific. Empowered by their latest victory, Japan issued China with the infamous 21 demands, extending its leases in Manchuria, Inner Mongolia, and awarding strong influence in the Shandong province. However, its demands of taking over China's finance, police, and the southern province of Fujian were shut down and only served to stoke anti-Japanese sentiment in China. Japan's resentments brewed during the Treaty of Versailles, when it sponsored a racial equality clause. The clause would create problems for Australia's White Australia policy, US restrictions of Asian immigration, and the suppression of African Americans, as well as call into question the rights of European colonial holdings.
Say the white man's
Unsurprisingly,
land?
it was
Wait,
refused. Domestically, a continuing theme of boom and bust emerged, which could be felt at every level of society. During World War I, Japan cashed in on European trade embargoes, and exports rose from 1.4 billion yen to 6.8 billion. An influx of Western cinema and culture encouraged Japanese directors to move away from producing documentaries and into the creation of genre films, such as 1921's Souls on the Road, a fascinating look at how heavily influential Western culture was in Japan at the time, and A Page of Madness, one of Japan's first horror films. This also saw women begin acting careers, as opposed to the men who traditionally took on female roles in kabuki theater. The women of the Taisho period were nicknamed the Modern Girls, wearing European fashion, sporting short hairstyles, and spending their time shopping in newly built department stores. They were the heir of traditionalists, who exemplified them as proof of social decay and the perversion of Japanese values. However, the economic boom of World War I was quickly followed by a post-war crash. Uncontrolled inflation caused unemployment and social unrest throughout the country, all culminating in the 1918 rice riots, seeing strikes, bombings, and the resignation of the Prime Minister. As the Korean and Taiwan colonies were forced to increase rice production, the economy appeared to be in recovery, until the morning of September 1st, 1923, when the Great Kanto earthquake struck Tokyo and the surrounding areas. Combined with the resulting fires, over 100,000 died, and 3 million were homeless.
Damn, that
Deflecting criticism away from the
was that
government,
bad?
Korean migrants were falsely targeted as looters and having helped spread the fires, which resulted in a massacre of 6,000 ethnic Koreans.
Holy shit.
For film historians, the earthquake and fires destroyed the majority of Japan's early movies and animations. However, studios were able to quickly rebound with renewed spirits, but financing proved difficult. After praising
It's crazy to think about. The amount of like work, both animation and just film in general, that have been lost to fires.
the quality and moral messages behind The Mountain Where Old Women Were Abandoned, the Education Ministry began commissioning anime. The first backed cartoon was The Pot. Based on an Arabian Nights tale, it incorporated speech bubbles inspired directly from manga. With funding now behind them, professional animation output developed rapidly. Disease Spreads was created to raise awareness of hygiene and germs. The Story of Tobacco combined paper-cut animation and live action to humorously teach the history of cigarettes. The rebuilding of Tokyo was equally sudden. History of cigarettes.
1926. When did Bobo the Clown come out? Hold on. I think it's like Bobo the Clown. Wow. I might be thinking of a different clown. $1900s. Hold on. Coco the Clown. Coco the Clown. Was his earliest stuff? 1927. Out of the Inkwell. That's what I'm thinking of. Okay. $1920. Okay, so it does predate it by a tad bit. So 1926, we got 1920s. So if you don't know about Coco the Clown, this was really, really, really early animation that was occurring at this time. But one of the interesting things about this in particular was its integration of live action with a 2D animation, which was so interesting, especially for its time conceptually. So it actually had like the artist being filmed drawing on the canvas and stuff, and then it had the animation reacting to what is occurring to it, which is so phenomenal when you think about it. It's so phenomenal. There's animators nowadays that aren't able to do this level of creative work that they had back then. Diddy! I wonder if this is the one where he actually gets into party mode too. Look at him actually fighting with the cat too. It's so amazing the level of creativity from the 20s, like animation. Okay, okay. But I stall. I think I finished my food. We've let me try launching up Valo real quick. Hopefully I don't have to restart it again. But I want to try and get like a couple of ranked games before we get back into Bayonetta. It was a cool documentary though. I might save that for later to watch. Maybe while we're having dinner or something. Oh shit, I closed it. Okay, let me close that up. Okay. This and fuck, I totally forgot if uh totally forgot if game capture works for All right. Valorante. I decided to opt out of having a coffee and fucking went with orange slices. I I should have went coffee. uh fuck, I might just end up making coffee. Uh I feel kind of full though. Hmm. All right, let's see if game capture works. All right, did my game just crash? What the hell just happened? Okay, I honestly don't know what happened to my game. Oh, added to. I don't Valo connect that bad boy. Okay, I don't know what's happening here. What happened to my screen? Hello? Oh, there it is. Oh man. Hmm. This is the longest that Valo's ever taken to launch up for me. I'm gonna close it. Oh no. Not access specific ice path. No. No. Why is everything breaking today? All right. Launching. Ooh. Man, one update, the game is completely fucked. Oh, no loading? Okay. Oh, wait. Oh, I had to restart my computer for this. Oh, yeah. I could have just went back to. Hmm. Dude, I think Valo's actually broken. Oh, fuck. No bueno. No bueno. Ay. Oh, maybe it might be something to do with that new update that just finished. Oh, I could try maybe validating files or something. Is there a way of validating files on this? Like, right, has something like. Yeah, they don't. Bum, bum, bum. All right, I'll try launching it one more time. Oh, it started! Oh, no way! It actually fucking worked. Hopefully it loads now. I'd chalk this up to yeah. Come on, give me the main menu. Main menu! It's gonna be stuck on this. Oh, is it actually gonna be stuck on this loading screen? Alright, in the meantime, finish off that document. See if it loads up.
The rebuilding of Tokyo was equally sudden. Modern homes and buildings populated the city, and in Tokyo, the number of cinemas increased to 178. The new cinemas showcased the latest films and were often accompanied by animated shorts,
So cool
such as The
man.
Burglars of Baghdad, a parody of the US's Thief of Baghdad, and of course, The Story of the Monkey King, a highly abridged retelling of the Chinese novel Journey to the West. Labor disputes and the disparity between rich and poor continued to be a major issue, and the rise of socialist thought began to grow among students and factory workers. The political address, Ethicization of Politics, emphasized the importance of universal suffrage, which was awarded to men over the age of 25, and highlighted the problems of profit-oriented government. While all men were now able to participate in government activities, the Public Security Prevention Law was passed, having a zero-tolerance policy against criticisms of the sacred emperor and the government. And if history has taught us anything, government censorship is always the first step down a dark path. The final month of 1926 saw the sudden death of the emperor and the end of the Taisho period. Born sickly and after a bout of cerebral meningitis, he was rumored to be mentally incapable of ruling effectively. As such, his son, Hirohito, had been regent prince since 1921. His title and era name was Showa, often translated as Enlightened Peace, a sadly ironic name considering what was about to come. The first decade of animation in the Showa era saw rapid developments in both genre and technology. Veteran Noboru Ofuji continued to refine his paper-cut style with A Ship of Oranges and the award-winning Golden Flower, as well as The Nation of Fish, which is a particular favorite of my own. A new generation of folktales was brought to life on the screen and showed a marked improvement of skills. The Lump instills the virtues of being thankful and warns against greed. as does the classic Old Man Goichi. Western parables, too, were released consistently, with two versions of The Ugly Duckling
Oh,
and Tom Thumb. The Ministry of Education continued to be a financier, helping produce Preventing
Thumb Thumb
Tuberculosis,
classic.
Electrical Telegraphy, Electric Bells and Telephones, demonstrates the inner workings of modern conveniences, and the development of the train educated young and old alike. Some of the first instances of sci-fi emerged too. A Day After 100 Years predicted World War II, in which the main character was brought to the year 2032 via a time machine and took a spaceship to Mars. During the burgeoning Silver Age of anime, the Great Depression was devastating Japan's still recovering economy. Switching the value of the yen to the gold standard, banks immediately exchanged their currencies to US dollars, crashing the value of the yen. The price of rice and barley dropped 43%, leaving farmers unable to pay taxes. The failure rate of small businesses doubled, and unemployment exceeded 20% in major cities. To find work, hostess cafes, offering a variety of adult services, grew rapidly.
Oh
Licensed escorts
no,
were
that's
permitted
right.
in
I forgot
Japan,
about
but the
that.
number of illegal hostesses rose to 111,000 by 1936, far outnumbering the authorized workers. It became so notorious that students were banned from cafes and coffee houses that employed women. 1932 also saw the first adults-only anime, The Cool Ship. While there are rumors that it still exists, it is yet to be digitally exhibited
I wonder
publicly.
if like
Amid the violence and
the
protests
declining
of the
birth
Great
rate
Depression,
of Japan
Marxism
is
took
due
deeper
to like
root in
hostess clubs
society.
and shit like that.
Technically illegal, but still tolerated in some cases. Socialist magazines could be found throughout the country. It naturally led to the creation of the Proletarian Film League of Japan, or Prokino for short. The majority of films and animations produced by the League were either censored beyond recognition or destroyed. However, some managed to survive. Pero the Chimney Sweep tells the story of a man inadvertently helping destroy his hometown. The film takes an anti-imperialist stance with the moral that no one ever wins in war. Though socialist groups helped push forward the Minimum Age of Industrial Employment Act, increasing radicalization within factions resulted in the entire movement being shut down. In a healthy display of patriotism, since becoming an active participant of the Olympics in 1912, the sports genre became widely popular. Japanese animals took part in baseball matches, various athletic competitions, taking to the slopes in
Wait, was 1932? 1930. I think this was around the time that like Fantasia came out, right? The original one. Oh no, not until 1940s. Wow, so this predates it a bit. Maybe Fantasia kind of like took a little bit of the inspiration for the hippo ballet. Yeah, because this was 1940s. So animals kind of like doing what like traditional humans were able to do. Like, that shit always made me laugh as a kid. This had so much personality, man. Man, they gotta bring this back, man. the the just like the like relationship between music and animation is so important. So important. Specifically like classical and orchestral pieces like these. They just look so fun to animate over. I'm pretty sure whoever was animating on Fantasia back in the day, like some of like the most renowned artists, probably had some of the most fun doing these kinds of things. It wasn't as structured as like a traditional like episode of something or movie. They were just kind
took
of like
part
they
in
gave them
baseball
let loose.
matches, various athletic competitions, taking to the slopes in alpine ski trips, and traveled to a tropical island in a slightly racist series of athletic events. During Mabo's big race, the titular character
I wonder how in tune with uh international animation a lot of Disney animators were. Like how many Disney animators were aware of like Japanese?
was even cheered on by Mickey Mouse and Betty Boop. Felix the Cat would also make his unlicensed debut in the bizarre Detective Felix in Trouble, created by Shigeji Ogino. Famous for his experimental shorts, the screensaver-worthy Rhythmic Triangles and Fighting Cards, and the hypnotic trilogy Propagate, and Expression, and Rhythm, all released in 1935. It should be noted the obvious lack of sound and color in early Japanese animations. Animations featuring fully synchronized sound had existed in the West since the early 1920s, and while sound in anime did appear around 1929, with talkies like The Black Cats, where friendly felines sang and danced along to a record, sound in Japanese films were viewed as non-essential as a result of the benshi. The benshi was a real-time narrator of sorts. These roles existed in other countries, but lingered on in Japanese theaters even into the 1940s. It was cheaper than translating foreign films, and despite being resented by many film groups, the benshi was proclaimed a cultural icon. However, they were ultimately unable to compete with rapidly developing technology, and often became actors and voice actors after becoming redundant. During the same period, color animation had become more commonplace in the West, and of course, it impressed Japanese audiences. Early anime used tinted film strips to give the illusion of...
Although I don't think Technicolor was the predating thing at that time. I forgot what the actual terminology was for like the Disney melodies or whatever the fuck they were called. The Merry Melody. They had like their own kind of like, was it Vista Color maybe or something like that? Kind of forget. It's been a long time since I studied animation in this way. Okay. My Valo game is just not launching at all. I don't know what to do here. Hmm. I might have to restart one more time. Might have to restart once. Oh, it says encoding overload. It launched up! No fucking way. Oh, it was an encoding issue. Oh my fucking god, we're on the fucking board. Hold on. Oh my fucking god, we're in! Okay. And it immediately froze on. Mm. Wait. Little window that popped. Oh, my game fucking froze! No! Heard it for a second. Hold on. Maybe my connection? Fucking hell. Fucking hell. That's a error code. I can't believe I got into the main menu just for it to crash on me again. Oh, god damn it. Ah! This is a good start to the marathon. Maybe I could try relaunching the stream. Let me see if like turning the stream off and then on fixes window for Valo. Hold on, I'll be right back.